Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full Daredevil Born Again Season 2, Episode 8 finale video. There are a whole bunch of WTF moments, Easter eggs, cameo scenes, so we will break it all down. Really happy that we got more classic Defender stuff from the Netflix days. I know there's going to be a ton of questions about that. There'll be a ton of stuff to unpack. Would have liked to have a little bit more Defender stuff happening towards the end of the episode, but Luke Cage, when he said that he was done with Mr. Charles and then he had hired Bullseye to replace him for whatever new Thunderbolts team that Val is putting together, it kind of sounds like they'll get into what was going on over there, like wherever he was fighting for Mr. Charles and Val during Season 3, and that'll just be part of his arc. But I did like that they had that scene in the Alias Investigations office, meaning that Jessica Jones has still been active in her Alias Investigations helping people, while also probably still earning money as a paralegal, because she didn't earn that much money at Alias Investigations. We will also see what Iron Fist was doing during all of this too, because he's so rich, he was probably trying to help Luke Cage out while he was doing all that stuff. But the episode did confirm a lot of theories from this season about what was happening with the other Defenders characters, particularly with Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and their daughter, Danny Cage. The episode was titled The Southern Cross, which is a reference to a boxing move, a straight, powerful counterpunch thrown with the rear hand, the right hand for the orthodox fighter, that travels over or crosses an opponent's outstretched jab, which is often used in a 1-2 combination or as a primary knockout blow, which is meant to be a reference to Matt Murdock, Daredevil, and Kingpin's last rematch fight in this episode, and him finally taking him down. But the twist on that too, because he did it in a very Perry Mason kind of way, talk no jutsu in the court of law, not as Daredevil himself. Not in like a traditional boxing match between the two of them, but they are both boxers, so I love the boxing metaphors. Also because Matt Murdock is a devout Catholic, always a lot of religion baked into Daredevil seasons. In Christianity, the Southern Cross is a reference to a constellation in the sky formed by a bunch of stars that is used to give spiritual guidance. There was no cold open in the episode, they just went straight from the opening titles to the actual beginning of the episode, and it starts with Matt and Karen in one of Karen Page's memories of a happy day they spent together at a restaurant, using the red lighting and the distorted lens to make you feel like you were in somebody's memory, and you find out that this is the restaurant that they're in at the end of the episode before Matt is arrested by the police. One happy day they had together in the past, and then again in the future after Kingpin is gone, before all the crap comes back to haunt them. Reality sets in and Matt has to go to jail. Even though it sucks, it does mean that we're going to get our Devil in Cell Block D adaptation at the beginning of Season 3 with Matt Murdock going full Punisher mode like we had during Daredevil Season 2 when Punisher was locked in prison with a whole bunch of other inmates that wanted to kill him, because Powell is in there and a bunch of the task force members who want him dead to rights for getting them thrown in jail. So prepare for a whole bunch of knockdown, drag-out Daredevil fights in prison at the beginning of Season 3. Jessica Jones then helps patch Matt up inside Punisher's lair after the firefight in the courthouse so that he can go right back to the courthouse because he's late for the trial. They joke about her enhanced strength, reminding you of all these Defenders references. She also references her daughter, Daniela Cage, again because of the Luke Cage cameo at the end of the scene with the three of them together again. Defenders assemble. When he says he can't finish Fisk alone, that's both a reference to his army of supporters, Daredevil's army, and all the people wearing the masks, the homemade suits, as well as the rest of them like Jessica, Karen, Kristen McDuffie, the judge, everybody working together to take Kingpin down by law, like using the law to take him down. You could also kind of look at it as a Defenders reference because Jessica Jones is back, Luke Cage, Iron Fist are on the way too.
I'm not hugging you.
Buck then tells Kingpin he had to kill Daniel Blake without having to tell him for betraying them and trying to save BB Urich. Notice he doesn't say it out loud like I said. Kingpin just understands what Buck means when he looks at him real strong. It does seem like Kingpin is kind of bummed out because he thought of Daniel Blake as like a younger version of himself. They never did quite as much as I expected with that storyline, probably because they eventually decided they wanted to kill Daniel Blake off, so like, we're not going to bother with that storyline anymore. He says he's still grieving Vanessa, but implying that it's clouding his judgment, and this will make it easier for Daredevil and everyone else to get him out of office, maybe to imply why it's so easy to set him off when he's on the stand, going full few good men Jack Nicholson. You can't handle the truth, and Daredevil basically getting him arrested for a whole bunch of charges that he was never supposed to be on trial for in the first place. Kingpin wasn't even supposed to be there at the trial. He finally starts to realize how much of a burden being in political office is, as if it's not as worth it as he thought it was before. Like he thought it was going to be easy for him because he was so good at being the Kingpin. He reminds Buck to try and finish the job on Daredevil and Karen Page, make sure that they do not survive. Then at court, all the testimony that Heather Glenn gives is ironic because the antisocial personality, sociopathy, hostility, duplicity are all things that Heather Glenn herself has been exhibiting this season as she slowly spirals out and turns into Lady Muse by the end of the finale, finally putting the mask on. She who smelt it, dealt it. Also, Matt calling her out numerous times during the trial here just pushes her further and further along that path, just causing her to completely lose it by the end. When they bring up Heather Glenn's book from Season 1, Men in Masks, All About Vigilantes, the passage she reads is also meant to foreshadow Matt both outing himself as Daredevil to the public, like a vigilante's mask doesn't hide his face, it reveals his private face, his true self. It's also meant to be a reference to her seeing her true self in the mirror when she's wearing the Muse mask, as if Muse is her true self and therapist Heather Glenn is the actual mask. It's kind of like the show is trying to say that Daredevil is the real person and Matt Murdock is the mask, but I don't totally believe that in this case. That is the case with some superheroes, like you could argue that for Batman and Bruce Wayne. Like Bruce Wayne is the mask and Batman is his true self, like he can truly be himself when he's under the cape and cowl. Matt is then surprised to learn that Heather Glenn and Karen fought it out over him, technically, like he kind of got the message they were fighting about him. And a lot of this talk of alter egos not cultivating an alter ego is also meant to be a reference to Kingpin and Wilson Fisk, because Kingpin is technically his alter ego, even though he doesn't wear a mask. That's meant to be the whole reference here. Eventually, they both call him Kingpin and Wilson Fisk, because there's a lot of people in New York City that don't know that Wilson Fisk is the Kingpin. Only a portion of regular people, as well as most of the vigilantes, both heroes and supervillains, people who would encounter him in their normal line of activities. But one of the ideas during the episode is that Fisk still had some supporters in the city because they didn't know about all of his shady stuff as Kingpin, and they still supported him. We get a real classic Kingpin move when one of the members of the task force puts on a fake Bullseye costume pretending to be him so that they can frame Bullseye for attempting to kill Kingpin at the courthouse and use it as a way to crack down even harder on vigilantes. This is ironic, obviously, because Kingpin used the same tactic in Daredevil Season 3 on Netflix when he had Dex dress up in the Daredevil costume pretending to be him so they could turn the police in the city against him. Kingpin just really likes dressing up his people in other people's costumes. Daredevil then calls him, putting him on the stand, and we have our part 2 of the big rematch between the two of them this season. But only this time, it's them fighting it out in court, talk no jutsu style, sparring back and forth verbally. And this episode goes very, very Perry Mason, like Matt gets Kingpin to confess to a whole bunch of crimes that he wasn't really on trial for. He wasn't even meant to be here in trial in the first place, because this was supposed to be Karen Page's trial. He then says the line, he said the thing, everybody pointed at the screen, he did the meme, when I was a boy.
Yeah, when I was a boy.
He said it! He uses his story as a metaphor for what's happening in the city right now in the episode, finding the biggest man and taking him down, as he implies he's going to take down the court system, justice itself. Later in the episode, he literally sits in the judge's chair behind the bench as if he's replaced the judge and he is now justice itself. Like he is above justice. All their back and forth verbal sparring is both referencing the trial itself, like what's actually happening that everybody understands, and also secretly referencing all of their Daredevil versus Kingpin fighting they've been doing for the last season. We get a great Dex moment when Bullseye just destroys the task force with ease, has a funny moment with his double too, where he's just remembering doubling Daredevil, calling this guy a poser, like, this is ridiculous. Then takes the rifle and acts like he's gonna try and kill Kingpin with it, not just try and make it look like somebody was trying to kill Kingpin. Later in the episode, Matt tries to get him to stop and he shoots Buck instead, so we will see whether that means Buck is dead or not, or if he winds up surviving to Season 3. I think it's just an easy out for the Buck character if the showrunners don't want to bring him back. But if it wasn't clear, in that moment, Bullseye was trying to kill Kingpin again, finish the job from before. The whole reason why Matt didn't want Bullseye to kill Kingpin, because yes, that would have been a solution to getting rid of Kingpin, because he could always be evil again in the future if he decides to change his mind again, was meant to be part of a bigger callback to Foggy Nelson's lesson to him in the Flashbacks before the events of Daredevil Netflix Season 1 when he was teaching Matt about having grace. Matt wanted to see the city see Kingpin taking the grace and taking the more peaceful solution, and that being basically the city healing itself, like everybody coming back together and not fighting each other, because that was kind of going on during the episode too if it wasn't clear. Half of the city wanted Kingpin gone and wanted to kill him and were supporting Daredevil, and the other half still supported Kingpin and wanted to kill the other half. If Bullseye had successfully killed Kingpin, or if the crowd, like the Daredevil crowd, had killed Kingpin later, it would have just made the riots even worse. Like, it would have been all-out war and chaos in the city. At the trial, they start by discussing the Anti-Vigilante Task Force and the Safer Streets Initiative, basically when he declared martial law and cut the power to the whole city in Season 1. He references Foggy Nelson's death. How dare you keep his name out of your mouth? Your wife hired his killer. He mentions Muse to remind you about the Heather Glenn subplot too. Muse gets a lot of name drops this season, just to remind you about Heather Glenn's stuff. When he mentions Officer Saunders, that was the younger officer who Daredevil and Karen Page captured and was trying to help them, but then was killed by Powell for betraying them. Matt then brings up pretty much all the shady stuff the Kingpin did this season, particularly the illegal prisons that the task force were throwing people in, and then tries to get him on the port and the ship. They start talking about the port, and then they bring up the footage of Kristoff, the other captain that Karen Page took before he was killed by Buck, revealing Kingpin's role behind everything, and to confirm that Daredevil was there at the ship and can testify to what actually happened on the ship with the weapons. Really love the moment here to show you the relationship between the characters. Like, this is deep, where Kingpin knows Daredevil's abilities, so he knows that he can hear him whispering from the other room and tries to call him out, threatening to expose him as Daredevil to get him arrested. But this is obviously building towards Matt doing it himself, outing himself to take Kingpin down. But they want you to wonder how it's going to happen at this point earlier in the episode. One of the other important moments during the video footage is that it confirms that Kingpin and Wilson Fisk are both the same person, which, like I said, a lot of people in New York City did not know, and the public is able to hear what's happening during this trial. And we finally get our full Tom Cruise, Few Good Men, Jack Nicholson scene, where Daredevil is able to push him over the edge and Kingpin goes full Jack Nicholson, you can't handle the truth, admitting to a whole bunch of really bad stuff that he was never on trial for in the first place. Basically getting him to incriminate himself. This is basically the show letting Matt Murdock be a really good lawyer, because most of Season 2 he's been primarily in Daredevil mode, and they did a little bit of that during Season 1. Originally during Season 1 it was going to be more of a weekly lawyer kind of show. But I do like the idea that between Season 1 and Season 2, he fought and defeated Kingpin as Daredevil, like they had a traditional duke it out, knockdown, drag out fight, but he's also defeated him as really good lawyer Matt Murdock. It would not be a proper Daredevil series if he didn't get to be a really good lawyer at least a little bit during the episodes. But then in order to finally seal the deal, finally get Kingpin dead to rights, he outs himself as Daredevil because he was there on the ship and he's willing to go to jail, sacrifice himself to testify to what Kingpin was actually doing. I love the way he also proved it to the courtroom too by throwing his stick around, and Jessica Jones just kind of laughs. She's like the only person who isn't astonished by it. Going to the courthouse, gonna enjoy ourselves a little show today. Powell is also super impressed. Well, a blind lawyer who can fight also gives him that look at the end of the episode too when they're inside prison, like, oh yeah, we are definitely gonna fight. Heather Glenn seems like she's an absolute shambles. I think the idea in the background is meant to push her further and further off of the edge into full-blown Lady Muse territory by the end of the episode. The other funny side detail that you might have realized that because Matt Murdock is outing himself as Daredevil here, this is probably Spider-Man watching this trial happen, like he's actually in the background being friendly neighborhood Spider-Man while this is happening, so he would be keeping tabs on what the task force and what is happening around Kingpin's trial. Seeing Matt out himself as Daredevil, then suddenly connecting the dots, oh, that blind lawyer who caught the brick was able to do that with his good skills because he is Daredevil. Before this moment, Spider-Man never knew that Matt Murdock was Daredevil. Using all this, he's able to get Karen Page's case dismissed, so she's free to go, free and clear now forever, but Matt has to stay because the police can now arrest him as a person of interest for all the crimes that Daredevil committed, and because Daredevil technically did commit a few crimes while he was trying to help people. I mean, he did it for a good reason, but he still technically did go against the law a little bit. When Kingpin tries to leave, the governor throws the book at him, basically trying to kick him out of office. They freeze his assets, cutting Kingpin off from all of his billions of dollars, and they have his assassin that Bullseye stopped, who survived, which they basically use to compel him to go into exile, which is part of Daredevil's deal at the end of the episode, like, please take the deal, just leave, man, just leave. So this is why you see Kingpin on the Greek beach, the beach that he and Vanessa owned, that they stayed on after the events of Daredevil Season 3 in The Snap. There was like a couple references to that, but maybe we'll learn more about it during Season 3. We get a great moment between him and Jessica Jones trading some barbs. They'd never had a ton of scenes together, but like they did briefly encounter each other in the past. He is well aware of who Jessica Jones is. He and Matt then get one last face-off before Bullseye tries to kill him again, Matt stopping him like I said, Buck technically taking the bullet for Kingpin, so maybe RIP Buck. I already explained why Daredevil did not want Bullseye to kill Kingpin. But now everybody is trapped in the courthouse overnight, including Kingpin. He tries to use the cameras in the news one last time to turn the city against Daredevil, his supporters against Daredevil and the governor, making it seem like he's the hero here. New York needs to rally for him and keep him in office, keep him in power. When he says the enemy is assembling, that line feels like an Avengers Assemble comp. And it winds up being everyone wearing the homemade Daredevil costumes showing up and trying to help Matt get rid of Kingpin. They use this part of the episode to make it seem like Kingpin is really delusional in thinking that the whole world is against him and he is still in the right here. They had that during the trial too, where he wanted to make himself seem like the hero, and Matt Murdock, Daredevil, were the villains of all this. We get another BB Urick viral video calling him out again for his crimes like we had previously this season, but this time she references Buck killing Daniel and she unmasks herself on camera too. Notice she has the red light too. I think that's to inspire people to rally behind Daredevil too. Like she's trying to stoke people up, gas the crowd up a little bit. A lot of people unmasking themselves in this episode. They bring Matt his Daredevil suit, and then Kingpin orders the task force to try and kill Matt and Karen. He also doubles down by telling them to kill anyone who gets in their way, meaning the governor, Jessica Jones, Kirsten McDuffie. They want to make it seem like Kingpin wants everybody dead. When they all head out for their epic hallway fight scene, couldn't be a Daredevil season without a big hallway fight scene, Jessica taking the swig off the bottle somehow felt reassuring, like, oh, shit's about to go down. It would not be proper for her to be completely sober. Everybody starts to converge on the courthouse. Cherry, Brett Mahoney, Angie Kim, the detective from season 1 show up, the good cops basically to try and get the task force to chill before they end up killing a bunch of protesters. And once Angela shows up in her white tiger gear with her mother in the amulet to call out the task force, they make it seem like Cole North is trying to be less of a dirtbag and starts to doubt Powell for lying about Hector Ayala during season 1. Is it they're trying to give Cole North a redemption from season 1 in this season, like he actually turns good and helps the crowd, tells them to get inside the courthouse and take down Kingpin. There are a couple funny moments inside the courtroom here while this is all going on, while this spins up into chaos. You get Heather Glenn punching Hochberg in the throat when he refuses to give his coat, as if she wants nothing to do with him. I actually thought that she was going to try and kill him this season, so I was a little disappointed by that. Like, oh, he's going to live. Oh, who cares? But you do notice while she does this, when she goes to give Buck the coat, he has this little evil smile on his face, like he enjoyed watching her punch him in the throat. My assumption is that if he does not survive that bullet that he took at the end of the season, then they're not going to be doing any team evil between the two of them, and they're just going to do her Lady Muse storyline subplot during season 3, but she's not going to be the main villain or anything like that. All these scenes of Sheila trying to connect the Attorney General to Kingpin, basically telling him to take the deal and go into exile, is also meant to set up the idea that Sheila will become the interim mayor, ascending to take care of the office until they have a proper election and she can be actually elected mayor, because it seems like she's the one that's handing the key to the city to Spider-Man, and there are some behind-the-scenes pictures that imply that she's also going to be around during Spider-Man Brand New Day. She's also going to be around during Daredevil Born Again Season 3, but I don't think she'll officially be mayor. She'll still be interim mayor then. This is also to pay off the line where she said that she'll be here long after Daniel Blake and Kingpin were gone, and she is. Turns out she was right. She will be here after they are gone. Then we finally start to get our epic hallway fight scene, and I love the way they actually did this. So it was both Kingpin coming from one side of the building, and Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Angela Del Toro coming from another side of the building, both fighting their way to the center in the courthouse with a giant staircase. Kingpin rips his way through all the Daredevil protesters like they had no chance. There was no way they were going to stop him. Like they're just tissue paper in front of him. So RIP to all those people. You can let me know where you rank this Daredevil hallway fight scene in terms of Daredevil and Jessica Jones' performance. This is not their first team-up hallway fight scene. You remember the Defenders when they were all hallway fighting together. But this is another one of Angela's first real big hallway fight scenes. The reason why she's so much quicker and stronger, even though she's like a little tiny baby almost, is because she has the amulet juicing her up. They even give Karen Page a little fight scene too, where she takes out the task force. Like, you're having a big action scene, it's the finale, of course we're gonna let everybody get a punch in somewhere. Then when they all converge in the central room here with all the Daredevil army protesters and Kingpin up on the stairs, they essentially boo him out of office. Like, everybody boo this man before they then try to mob and kill him. I already talked a little bit about why Daredevil doesn't want the crowd to kill him, and he's trying to offer Kingpin some grace as a callback to Foggy, teaching him all about having grace for everybody.
Mercy.
But one of the other reasons why Daredevil doesn't want them to kill Kingpin is because everything he's saying here, like the longer he monologues, the more he incriminates himself. So the longer they keep him talking, the easier it is for them to ultimately get rid of him the legal way and to get it to stick. And as predicted, they wind up ultimately ending their fight here, their last fight, as a talk no jutsu, where they hash out a deal like a couple of bros. And I do love the moment they ended on where he's like, you'll understand if I'm not going to shake your hand, Murdoch. He's like, yeah, I'll understand. Like, we're not going to hug it out. So this is all to explain how Kingpin survives into season 3 and he is not in jail because the Attorney General offered him the deal. Like, we're not going to try and arrest you for all this crazy stuff you did if you just quietly leave and don't ever try to be mayor ever again. In the aftermath, there's a little bit of a time jump and we get a montage of the city. Fogwell's gym, they've repaired the window to let you know how much time has gone by, like a little bit of time has gone by. The port, there's the courthouse, this is the warehouse where they were keeping all the prisoners, this is City Hall, this is Josie's, which still looks none the worse for wear, like still could use a little fixing up. Then we go back to that same restaurant that Matt and Karen visited in her memory after Kingpin is gone, like I said, like a bit of a time jump. He's left the city and joking about how they're leading a normal life now and not knowing how to be normal, just as the police show up to arrest him for all the stuff that he did as Daredevil. Technically, like I said, he did commit some crimes. There were a few crimes somewhere in there. They only cite assault and attempted murder, but like there's probably a bunch of others they could list there. And he jokes that he used to be a lawyer, a really good lawyer, starting to read himself his own rights instead of the cops. All to tee up our Devil in Cell Block D storyline at the beginning of Season 3. Basically, like I said, what it was like for Punisher in jail during Daredevil Season 2, where Powell, a lot of the other task force members in prison there, other people that Daredevil helped get ultimately locked up, come after him for revenge. We get a real big metaphorical and literal Luke Cage cameo scene when he shows up in yellow, like classic Luke Cage color, gotta wear yellow no matter what kind of clothes you're wearing, in her Alias Investigations office, and he's returning from his mission for Mr. Charles in the CIA overseas. He implies the stuff that Mr. Charles had him doing was real bad, but that he's done because Mr. Charles found someone else who they reveal is Bullseye, which I think we all predicted that Bullseye would be better off working for Val in like a new Thunderbolts type of team. This was actually a real good season for Dex, like Bullseye fans ate real good this year. Now Marvel needs to do a special presentation like a one-off movie for Bullseye to just show him doing all that crazy stuff for Val and whatever this new Thunderbolts team winds up being. We find out that BB Urick is going to work for the Bulletin, the newspaper that her uncle Ben Urick worked for. She reads his last article that he wrote about Kingpin during Season 1 before Kingpin killed him, and we will see what they do with her character during Season 3 if they bring her back. They could just explain that she's off helping people in the background, or they can make her a bigger part of the story. Either way, it'll be fine. Probably one of the more surprising things was the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. reference in the episode. Inside BB's office, like near the office, there's a paper that reads Cybertech Settles that the Bulletin wrote that was also used, like the same headline that was used during a season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So it's sort of like them carrying forward a little bit from that. Like it's just crumbs, but it is still an Easter egg nonetheless. So like you're getting some Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff in the background. Now they gotta do is just have one of those actors show up as their character from that show. While this is all going on and all the different sort of post-credit montage scenes with the different characters, they break up Matt slowly walking to his cell, like he's in his prison jumpsuit, slowly walking past everybody and into the actual cell block. We see Heather Glenn finally put her Muse mask on, implying that she's about to run out and start stabbing up a storm across the city. When she sees her unmasked face in the mirror, like I said, it's meant to be a callback to her testimony on the trial that masks showed people's true faces, and that saying that Lady Muse is her true self and Heather Glenn is the mask. I already explained Kingpin's ending here on his beach back in Greece. He will be back in the city for Season 3, but he's not going to be the main villain. There'll be other new main villains. This episode did not really explain or tease who those new villains are going to be beyond Lady Muse, but she's going to be like a lesser villain. She's not going to be the main villain. Maybe that'll have something to do with the Hand in Spider-Man Brand New Day. We will see. I think we'll get more information after that movie, and we have the Punisher special presentation, which is going to tie into that too, which is happening next week. The only bummer here, though, is that as they close the episode down, they literally close the cell door on Matt, and boom, it's black. See in Season 3 kind of vibe. We don't actually get a post-credit scene setting up the Punisher special presentation or setting up Season 3 with like more Defenders cameos. It would have been cool if Iron Fist had also shown up at the end of the episode, but I understand why they wanted to end that Luke Cage, Jessica Jones moment with them and their daughter together by themselves. Like that was enough to let you know, like, oh, the Defenders are back. But they are still in the middle of filming Season 3. Maybe we'll get some more teasers for that. They're supposed to release Season 3 around this time next year, so we're not going to have to wait that long before we actually get a Season 3 trailer, and maybe they'll do something at Comic-Con too for it. Everybody post all your reactions in the comments below, and if you spotted any Easter eggs or references in the episode that I didn't talk about during the video, and any big questions you have for Season 3 Defenders stuff. The really big is that next week, The Punisher One Last Kill special presentation short movie is going to be releasing in the Daredevil slot. It's taking over. It is basically like the next part of the timeline, setting up Spider-Man Brand New Day and what Punisher is doing during that. My full breakdown Easter eggs video for that, any big post-credit scenes, we'll post next week after they release it, so be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss that. Everybody click here for that episode. I'll update the link as soon as I post it, and click here for all my Boys Season 5 videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.